creating your podcast in a way that supports your why. Welcome back to the podcast Why. I'm Brett Johnson, my podcast guy, your trusted friend in podcasting. This show is here to help you reconnect with the real why behind your podcast so you can keep showing up with clarity and confidence. We've been working through 5 components of a strong why: your podcast description, your podcast purpose, how your show ties into your business and marketing strategy, the expected results you're looking for, and finally, your approach to creating the show in a way that supports your why. That's what we're talking about today. You can have a clear why, a strong purpose, and a thoughtful strategy, and still feel miserable making your podcast if your creation process fights against all of that. Your workflow, your schedule, your level of polish, the way you outline your script, how you handle guests, all of that either supports your why or slowly grinds it down. Think of your creation approach as the fuel system for your engine. If your why is the engine and your listener is the destination, your creation process is how you actually get the car moving week after week without burning it out. In this episode, I want to help you look at how you're making your show and ask, does this way of working actually let my why do its job? Here's a composite story I've seen many times. Imagine a host. We're going to call her Megan. Megan has a strong why. She wants to encourage and equip people in a demanding line of work, helping them feel less alone and more resilient. Her purpose is clear. Her show promise is solid. Her listeners who find her love her. But behind the scenes, Megan is exhausted. Her creation process looks like this: long, heavily edited episodes, multiple takes, lots of second guessing, late night recording sessions squeezed in after everything else, and a constant sense that she's behind. She's trying to sound like a big budget show, even though she's a one-person operation. When we talk, she says, I love what this podcast is about, but I dread production every week. She starts questioning her why, not because the purpose is wrong, but because her approach is unsustainable. We step back and I ask some different questions. Given your why, what kind of presence does your listener actually need from you? Does your editing process add value that matters to them, or is it mostly about your own perfectionism? If your show is about helping them live with more grace and less pressure, what would it look like to create your show with more grace and less pressure? Those questions open up a new way of thinking for her. She realizes her listeners aren't demanding studio-level polish. What they respond to most are the honest, grounded episodes where she sounds like herself. Her heavy editing and multiple takes are mostly about trying to prove she's good enough to be on the mic. We redesign her creation approach to support her why. She shifts from an hour-long episode to 20 to 25 minutes so she can go deep without draining herself. She moves to a simple outline instead of a full script because her why is about connection, not performance. She sets a realistic recording rhythm that fits her actual life, batching 2 or 3 episodes at a time instead of scrambling every week. She decides on a good enough editing standard. Remove big mistakes, clean up levels, but stop chasing perfection no listener has ever asked for. We also look at collaborations. She'd been saying yes to guest episodes that took a lot of coordination but didn't always serve her why. She starts being choosier, only bringing on guests who directly support her mission and are easy to work with. As her approach shifts, something important happens. Her experience of making the show moves into alignment with the message of the show. She's not preaching grace while grinding herself into dust. Her creation process becomes an extension of her why instead of a contradiction of it. So let's turn towards you. You've spent a lot of time clarifying your why, your purpose, your strategy, and your expectations. Now it's time to ask, is the way I'm making this podcast compatible with the reason I'm making it? Here's a simple reflection exercise. Step 1, write down in one sentence the core feeling or change your show is trying to bring your listener. For example, less alone and more understood, less confused and more confident, less stuck and more in motion. Step 2, underneath that, jot down a quick snapshot of your current creation process. How long episodes are, how you prep, outline, script, or just bullet points, how much editing you do, how often you record and release, who else is involved, if anyone. Step 3, ask yourself, does this process make it easier or harder for me to show up in the way my why is asking me to? Would my listener be surprised or disappointed if they saw what it cost me to make this show the way I'm actually currently making it. Here is today's Podcast Why question. What's the one small change you could make to how you create your podcast, length, prep, editing, scheduling, or guests, that would make your process feel more aligned with your why and more sustainable to you? You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Maybe you shorten your episodes slightly, allow yourself fewer edits, batch record once a month, say no to one misaligned guest, or switch from a rigid script to a looser outline, or vice versa, depending on what supports your best self on the mic. The goal isn't laziness, it's alignment. A show built on a strong podcast why should be created in a way that respects that podcast why and respects you. If you'd like help redesigning your creation process so it actually supports your mission and your life, that's something I work on with podcasters all the time. You can book a clarity call with me. Just head over to my Podcast Guy online and look for the Book a Clarity Call link. We'll look at your why, your current workflow, and where a few strategic tweaks could make a big difference. Thanks for listening to the Podcast Why. I'm Brett Johnson, my Podcast Guy, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.